Welcome to Occupolitics, a Harry Potter reread podcast that focuses on politics in the wizarding world. As always, I am Adri, one of your hosts, and a recovering English major.
And I'm Helene, your co-host, producer, and other person. I forgot we weren't doing that part of the intros anymore. It was like a reflex. I was like, oh, I have to say it nope. Sorry.
No, it's okay. We can just get into it right now. What a week.
Yep. My brain is on autopilot, apparently.
I love it. How you doing, Helene?
I am a little ball of stress, just trying to, it's like, being an adult is basically just like telling yourself all you have to do is get through like the next week or, the next chunk of time. And you'll be fine. And you're just constantly just trying to get through that chunk of time. And the chunk of time just keeps on expanding or moving, So I'm kind of in the middle of that right now.
So like the goalpost keeps moving is what you're saying?
Yeah. It's like, okay, well, and right now it's like my chunk of time is kind of like, I don't know like a specific end date for said chunk of time. And if I did, it would probably be like months in the future. So it's like kind of depressing to think I just need to get through the next few months. Yeah. Which just like doesn't make me feel better at all.
Okay, I mean, fair. Like when you like think about the enormity of life, right? Like,
yes,
who
exactly.
Who amongst us? Just like when we were talking about a few weeks ago, teething, right? Like, oh, it's only 8 days per tooth,
Yeah. Right.
So
exactly.
Just the tiny things. But you know what? We will get through it. You will eat that elephant one bite at a time. So it's kind of how I keep like talking to it. It's like pep talk to myself. It's like,
didn't we talk about this last time? I don't want to eat an elephant. Can we talk about it in terms of pieces of pizza? Because
yes. Or did you ever watch Matilda when you were a kid?
The movie with Danny DeVito? Yeah, of course.
So eat that chocolate cake.
Yes, I was also thinking Bruce, like a chocolate cake.
Bruce.
Pizza or cake. I'm fine with either pizza or cake, but I genuinely do not have an interest in eating an elephant. So
I just keep telling myself, like, you know what? You're gonna do this one bite at a time. We got it.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's very wise of me, but like, what else can I do? And what else can you do? Honestly, Helene, things are out of our control.
It's the reality of just being an adult.
Yeah. Fair. Well, I hope things ease up before it's months and months of
right.
this.
I mean, I do have at least like it's actually pretty close now. The week of Thanksgiving, I do actually have plans to like go home for an entire week and not work. So I am looking forward to that. So like but at the same time, the amount of work it's going to take to prepare the people who need to cover my stuff at work when I'm gone.
So and then
and then the amount of work it's going to take when I get back to catch up on all the things that I missed in that week. Like taking a vacation as a like functioning like full-time working adult is not, there's work involved in taking time off, which is just so counterintuitive, but it makes the concept of the time off not as exciting, if you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I feel like almost every vacation that I've taken ever since I've been salaried has been like, I've got to pre-work the time that I'm going to be out, or, prep someone to help like sustain it. And then when I get back, realize that person did not do what they should be doing.
Yeah. And even if they
like post-work that vacation.
And even if they did, like you still have to catch up on 8 million emails and, 30,000 Slack messages and, catch up on, okay, so the client asked for this, and this that last week. So I have to make sure that I like, it's just so much work, mental gymnastics really, both before and after. So, but I am looking forward to the actual vacation, but and knowing me, I will probably be checking my work emails and, the accounts that I run um while I'm home on vacation because that's just who I am.
Yeah, I mean, I feel you from the bottom of my heart. I feel you.
Mhm.
I hope you too get to the point where I'm at, where it's like, if I'm not getting paid, this is vacation time. I am not looking at my phone. I feel like maybe
Oh, see, yeah. I
like like my maternity leave was the like my.
You were a
I'm gonna
little
laugh.
preoccupied during your maternity leave, come
Because
on.
my boss was texting me, and I was like, "You're not allowed to text me, bitch."
Yeah,
That's why I quit, among
yeah.
other things. Anyway, but during my maternity leave, I was like, "I'm not checking my fucking email." Like,
Yeah, for me, it's like some weird loop for me where it's like I convinced myself that, um, like, if I look now, it'll be less that I have to deal with when I get back. And it's like I've convinced myself that I'm helping out future Helene by making present Helene work on her vacation,
okay, so you need
which
to do with like, so here's what you need to do. You need to do like the new Adri part, which is like that's a future Adri problem. Present Adri is on vacation.
yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I do need to do that. You know what? That's going to be a goal of mine. I have two goals. Well, probably more than two goals, but I have two goals that I can think of right now for the week that I'm going to go on vacation. The first one is to try and not look at my emails or work the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is to read at least two books.
Oh, and that's great because you got two Emily Henry books to read.
Yes, and I actually did start. I have read. Is it one or two chapters? I think I've read two chapters of the book that you got me for my birthday last year. Spoiler alert by Olivia Dade.
Ooh.
Um, so I have started that one, and so I want to finish that one. I'll probably listen to at least one audiobook on the rides there and back, and then I also want to bring at least one Emily Henry book and finish, and maybe a Bridgerton book too. I'm gonna try and read a lot. Is basically what I'm trying to say.
That sounds like a really relaxing time to, yes, reading romance novels or reading something you enjoy. Yes, I'm here for it.
Yeah, it'll help balance out the chaotic, craziness of a family Thanksgiving, which everybody knows is, you know,
I'm actually going to Seth's family's for Thanksgiving, so we're driving 8 hours to El Paso
fun, fun,
with three dogs and a
and a
seven
baby.
month old.
Yeah,
Yay us, guys!
you
Yay
got
us!
this. You have another human being to help you at least, so just confide in him and make sure that he helps you.
Oh yeah, he's driving the entire time. I'm
Good.
probably just like going, like my concern is, cool, he's driving, but if I'm going in the back seat so I can like be with Livy so she doesn't like freak out because it's a long drive,
Yeah.
I'm going to get car sick. So if I'm going to get
Yeah.
car sick,
Me too.
I'm going to like need some Pepto in the back seat.
Yeah, I get car sick if I sit in the back too, so I feel that.
Um it's another thing they don't tell you about being an adult is like once you start driving, you're gonna get car sick in the backseat.
Oh, I just always I think it's part of my migraines, but yeah, I get motion sick in every situation.
Well, I used to also. I mean, that's you're right. Now that I'm thinking about it, I used to also get car sick like back home, but I thought it was because my parents like to go to the mountains in the center of the island, and that those roads are windy. But like, it's
Yeah.
probably like just being in the back
Yeah.
is not
My
great for me.
my whole life I've never been able to like read on a plane or in a car, and I've always been really upset about that because I've always wished I could read while I'm traveling.
Well, but now that you have audiobooks,
Now
so
I have
that's
audiobook.
exciting.
Yes, audiobooks are a beautiful invention, I will
I
say.
mean, I'm gonna like humble brag here, but like the only sad thing about like having a very talented writer friend who just finished her manuscript and got an agent is that I don't have anyone to read the the manuscript to me, so I'm having to like read it in between like
Yeah, that's true, it's not an audiobook yet.
yeah, like in between feedings and like in
Right.
between like work breaks and whatever. So I'm like, I'm at like chapter 4, I think, or 5, and I'm just like, damn it, like this is so good. And like if this was an audiobook, I'd already be done.
Yeah. No, I feel ya, I feel ya.
It's like very humble brag. Like, can't wait until she like gets this like sold and published. And I'm gonna buy all the copies because it's pretty great. But yeah, just I also made some mom friends today. Like this is the last thing, and we'll get to like stuff. But like I made some mom friends today, and I feel like a kindergartner coming back home and being like, oh my god, I made friends.
It is really this is something they also don't tell you about being an adult. It is really hard to make friends as an adult.
Oh, it is absolutely very hard. And like, so there's this app called the Peanut app, and it's I think the people who made it were Bumble people, and it's like to make mom friends basically. But it's
That's nice.
like I it's like dating too. Like I'm not going to swipe on up on all the mom friends, you know, like I don't know. I was kind of like more interested in people who have like kids around my age so that, you know, I can, I don't know, make friends with people her age, like, so she could have like friends like
Yeah,
built in
yeah,
basically.
yeah,
But
yeah.
like, there are no like babies her age around our neighborhood. So I'm just trying, okay?
I feel ya, I feel ya.
And also like, there's some like no shade, but like, there's some like moms who are like in their very early 20s, and I'm like I don't know if I'll be able to relate. So for now, that's not I can't I'm not gonna swipe up on this one. Okay, let's so it's like it feels a lot like trying to date, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, making friends as an adult is very similar to
And then we
dating.
were always like all so it was two of us today who met up, and like you know, three of us, so me and two others, and we were like talking about our husbands and stuff, and I could tell we were trying to figure out if our husbands would get along, which is like the weirdest thing ever. So it's like trying to set up play dates for our husbands too,
That's funny.
because like a lot of the people that I've been talking to on the app just moved to San Antonio or are not from San Antonio originally, so they don't have like a lot of like people here. So like you, we're all trying to like, oh, so like what does your husband like to do? Oh, interesting, interesting. Well, maybe my husband might enjoy that too. Kind of thing.
And you gotta keep them entertained just as much as the children, so
I mean, I think just having friends is important no matter like you can be in a very happy relationship, but if you don't have like a life outside of each other, it
Oh,
can
totally.
like get so
I didn't know that topic was
bad.
up for debate. No, I 100% agree
No,
with that.
no. No, I'm just saying it like I
Yeah,
know it's obvious, but
yeah.
like some people don't think that way though. Some people are just like super happy to be just in their bubble, but I need some outside situations because I can't.
I'm not even in a relationship with, a significant other, and I like, the thought of that just suffocates me. Like, the thought that I wouldn't have any friends outside of no. Nope. Anyway, should we move on?
What? We're not in a relationship podcast? Oh
I
no! I'm looking at the wrong at the wrong document here. All right, let's talk about the news real quick, and then we'll get to the actual chapter we're going to be talking about, which is chapter 17, titled "Bathilda's Secret of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows." So Helene, what happened this week?
Okay, so obviously because we're a politics podcast, we're going to talk about the big one, which is the elections that happened. We record on Wednesday nights, so the elections, midterm elections for the United States, were last night. But before we get to
Mhm,
that, I just have one piece of news that, like, literally just shocked my entire world that I just need to talk about really, really quickly. Honestly, when I saw this for the first time a couple of days ago, like my brain was like, does not compute. Like what?
mhm,
Aaron Carter passed away at the age
mhm,
of 34. I haven't really okay, so it's weird because I know that like as an adult he was kind of like a little bit controversial and like kind of made some crazy decisions and statements and he wasn't like the best like adult as far as I know. Uh
mhm.
but like I was like the biggest Aaron Carter fan when I was younger. Like I think his Aaron's Party CD might have been the first CD I ever owned.
Oh.
Um I just remember, like, I can remember vividly being like a young girl, like listening to my Walkman, my Aaron Carter CD in my basement, just dancing around and singing. Like, I can remember that so vividly. So, um, and like the episode of Lizzie McGuire where she and Miranda like
Mhm, mhm.
sneak into his
Is an
Christmas,
iconic piece
yeah,
of literature,
his
is what it is.
yes, his Christmas music video, is yeah, that is, like, one of my all-time favorite episodes of Lizzie McGuire, which is one of my favorite shows as a kid too. So, like, um, so yeah, when I it's been, like, a real it's just this death has, like, really, like, affected me weirdly because, like, I wasn't a fan of him for the majority of my life, but, like, when I was, it was, like it was so, yeah, I haven't got like, I haven't been able to get myself to, like, read the articles, so I don't know how he died.
Mhm.
Because like, when I think about it too much, it just kind of like, my brain just kind of wants to be like, "Nope, not we're not gonna deal with this right now." Um,
Well, I mean, to be fair, it sounds like you were a big fan of his in a very formative period of your childhood
yeah,
or your young adulthood, however you want to call it.
yeah,
Um, and that is so fucking hard to come to terms, even like with something bad that happened to or happened because of someone that
yeah,
you
it
had an
honest
attachment to.
it's weird because this one feels the most surreal of all of, like, the celebrity deaths. Like, I look at it, I'm like, am I being tricked? Like, is this can't actually be real? Like, it just my brain just does not want to. Yeah, it's very strange. So I don't. I wonder if anybody else is feeling the same way. Um, it just makes me very sad. So I just wanted to share that with you all.
Well, I feel like that's a pretty and like common response to something like traumatic, right? Like, oh, this doesn't feel right. Like this doesn't feel real. Like I'm not living in the real world, am I? Right? Like this is
Yeah,
a like kind of does not compute, like you said earlier.
yeah,
So I feel that. I feel that. Um, that episode of Lizzie McGuire was iconic literature and should be in the like in the canon of literature for
yeah,
future generations.
yeah, yeah.
It
I
also
want
gave us
candy.
like I mean Aaron Carter also gave us the Lindsay Lohan and Hilary Duff feud. So there's also that.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know, man. It kinda makes me wanna go back and, like, rewatch all of his old music videos from Aaron's Party and all of the he had, like, 2 or 3 albums, I think it was 3 albums, um, that he came out with. Oh, I just God, I love that
It makes
freaking
me incredibly sad because he definitely had like not the best childhood. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
neither of those like none of those pop stars really did.
yeah.
So,
Like I said, I haven't, like, looked into his cause of death, but I assume it's probably substance abuse related,
mhm.
um, unfortunately, because I know he had some issues with that as an adult, um, but yeah,
Well, yeah, that's may he rest in peace.
definitely. Such a young age too, like, he's literally, like, 5 years older than me, so
Yeah. He's just and he had just had a baby too with his ex.
wow. That I didn't know.
So, Yeah.
Anyway, let's
What
talk
a
about
bummer. Let's from one bummer, let's talk to a slightly other less bummer, I guess. I mean, Dems did have some wins last night.
yeah, I mean, let's talk about politics. Yeah, I mean, it was a good night for abortion rights. I'll say that. Um,
Well, it was a good night for a lot of states, just not Georgia and Texas. Let's say that.
yeah, I mean, there are other states where we also, didn't have great.
I was just really hoping that Georgia and Texas was good. We're gonna
I
like
mean,
turn it around on the governor's races.
talk about
And
talk about brain does not compute. I will never understand why the people of Georgia refused to elect Stacey Abrams. I do not understand it.
I think that as a society, and I mean this in like the most generic way, like I'm not like pointing fingers, right? We still have like the most like woman hating undercurrent ever. Like we do not, and especially like it's just like misogynoir, right? Like it's basically she's black and she's a woman
And she takes up space.
and she takes up space and she has a voice, and people are not, they're not willing to do that, to
Yeah.
to get behind
It's
her.
it's disappointing. But I still have faith that she'll run probably for president one day. And I hope that one day she will be our president. So,
Oh, I 100% agree. But I really, like, she said that she wanted to serve the state of Georgia, and I really wanted that for her,
me too. Yeah.
and I'm really sad that it's not happening. I'm also very disappointed in my fellow Texans,
Yep,
not
yep.
necessarily San Antonians, because that looked real blue as hell.
Yep.
Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, and Houston and
Yep.
El Paso looked blue as hell.
Yep.
It's mostly the rural counties around
Are we
the
surprised?
not surprised at all.
No. No, not at all.
I'm just really pissed off about like
Yeah.
ugh.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but um I haven't checked since this morning because I know that votes are still being counted and I've been really busy all day, but um I know that, the majority in the Senate hadn't been determined by the
it,
time last time I looked.
no, it hadn't been called yet. Last time I looked, I
Okay.
can do uh a quick Google. Yeah, still undecided.
48 seats for Republicans and 46 seats for Democrats currently. Uh, with
No, I have 48 and 49.
oh, I literally just typed in Google Senate election results and it shows me a map that says 46 Dem, 48 Republican.
Okay. Let's see. There are
Whatever, it's going to be different by the
yeah.
time that this episode comes out. Either way, future people, if it has been determined, you know, either yay or boo, depending on whatever the outcome is.
Yeah, so okay, so there are 3 Senate seats still undecided. CNN has projected already 48 for Democrats and 49 for Republicans. Arizona has the Democrat leading, but it's still not called. Georgia has Warnock leading, but it's still not called. And Nevada has the Republican leading, but it's still not called. So if these trends hold, it'll still be a 50-50 Senate.
Damn. Okay. Um, hell yeah, Warnock better fucking beat Walker. That's all I gotta say. Uh,
I mean, those are the other things, right? Like you have a candidate who's like so freaking terrible, right?
yeah,
And he comes so close to beating Warnock, who's like a great candidate. Like this is where we're at.
yeah, I know.
Like it's like high school like popularity contest at this point.
At least we can rest easy that Dr. Oz is not elected,
Jesus
and
Christ, I
yes,
know.
that that Dr. Oz lost his election, and he conceded. I mean, at least he had the basic human decency to concede and not
Well,
call it.
I heard he lost by a pretty wide margin, but I haven't read how much the margin was.
Yeah, I didn't. I just saw he lost. I was watching the election coverage live last night, but I was also multitasking and preparing for this podcast. So, um,
Okay, so so Fetterman was about 200,000 votes ahead almost of
nice,
Oz. So
nice.
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Anyway, I hope that by the time you lovely listeners are hearing this in your ear holes, we know that it's at least a 50-50 Senate. We didn't like lose
Yeah,
the Senate.
we don't want a Republican majority, at least me personally, but
Oh well. Speaking of things we don't want, this chapter is quite something. I completely had forgotten how intense it is. So please tell us what happened, Celine.
yes. So, Matilda's secret. This is the one where Harry and Hermione believe that they are being watched in the graveyard. So they start to leave Godric's Hollow when Harry spots the house where his parents died that fateful night 16 years ago. They stop to see what is left of Harry's childhood home when they are approached by who they believe to be Bathilda Bagshot. They follow her home only to be attacked by Nagini, who was masquerading as Bathilda the entire time before summoning Voldemort to kill them. Harry and Hermione narrowly escape, but Harry's wand gets irreparably damaged in the chaos. Um,
Okay, look. Nagini wearing the corpse of Matilda Bagshot
yeah.
as like a meat coat is the most disgusting thing ever.
I mean, honestly, yes, that was gross, but like I also got like visceral reactions when they were describing the smell of her house because like
Oh yeah,
obviously she was like the author was trying to describe the smell of rotting human flesh without
correct.
specifically describing the smell of rotting human flesh to like give away the plot twist or whatever. That was disgusting. Also like rereading this like it was just as confusing to follow the narrative of what the fuck was happening this time as it was the first time I read it. I remember I had to
Oh,
reread this like that part of that chapter like 30 times because I was like, what the
100%.
fuck happened?
Yeah, I think I remember the first time I read it, I was like, "Where did Nagini come from?"
Yeah,
like it didn't click to me that it was like Nagini was using like
yeah,
Matilda's corpse as like a sausage casing.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. It was. I feel like they did a good job in the film, kind of like showing it better because now that I've seen the movie, it's like I can actually imagine it in my mind's eye or
visualize.
whatever. Yeah. But when I read it, both the first time and this time, like unless like if I wasn't thinking directly of what happened in the movie, like I was like, I cannot visualize what the fuck she's trying to say is happening here. Like it's
Yeah,
very weird writing. I don't know how to explain it, but
yeah. No, I like it's good enough writing to like conceal the plot twist, but not good enough to like shed light, to me at least, on the mechanics of the plot twist.
yeah, the only thing about the plot twist that like there was a hole that I noticed where like okay, so the reason that Bathilda doesn't Bathilda, I don't know how you're supposed to say it, doesn't like speak in front of Hermione is because it's Nagini and she only speaks parcel tongue and only Harry would understand her, right?
Hmm.
But there is one they get into the house and immediately like she goes in another room and she says, "Come." And both Harry and Hermione understand her.
No, I didn't think so. There's like a moment where that moment where she's in another room and she says come, and Harry understands her, and but if you
Wouldn't
notice the
Hermione like been like, "Why did I just hear a snake hissing?"
no, she jumped, and Harry was like, "It's okay, it's okay." He thought that she was like jumping or reacting to the come, like to that.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I think okay, let me find it because
Yeah,
I
my book
had
is across the room, otherwise I'd look, but I just remember, like, getting to the end, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, but, like, I know she says come," and, like,
yeah,
they
yeah,
both
yeah.
are there.
I remember like catching on to that today. So that's why I was like, no, no, no,
Okay.
wait. I think I actually had this thought, you know?
Okay, yeah, I mean, I can commend anybody who can write a plot twist like that that doesn't, like, that holds up the whole time, basically, when you go back and reread it, like,
Yeah. So that's why I was like, oh, she actually did a really good job at this, you know? I
yeah.
gotta give her props here. Okay, so it says, look at the size of her. I think could overpower her if we had to, said Harry. Listen, I should have told you. I knew she wasn't all there. Muriel called her Gaga. Come, called Batilda from the next room. Hermione jumped and clutched Harry's arm. It's okay, said Harry reassuringly, and he led the way into the sitting room.
Oh, weird. Okay, like, why didn't she say something?
Because I think she was like, what the fuck just happened? And he didn't realize that it was because she heard hissing.
Yeah,
She's probably like hearing.
yeah, yeah, like, "Hiya, shasta, fa sha sha." I don't know, however they say it in Chamber of Secrets. Uh, yeah.
It's like she's hearing bitch like.
Oh my gosh.
Anyhow, all hissing aside, Aline, when you read this chapter, what politic did you think about?
Yeah, so I we talked a little bit about this in the last episode, but I god, I went through so many words in my mind of, like, what would be the best word to describe how I wanted to kind of wrap this chapter up in a little bow. And I decided to go with memorialize, like memorialization,
Hmm.
which the definition is to preserve the memory of or to commemorate. And since I hate when they use, like, a word in a definition that also has a definition, like, I decided to also define commemorate, which means to recall and show respect for someone or something.
Okay.
Um, so I chose this mainly. The big part was when Harry and Hermione, like, get to Harry's home, or, like, the Potter's home. Like, they see that it's kind of, because we talked about it this last chapter with, like, the war memorial, and how then it then turned in the graveyard, it then changed into, like, the statue of the Potters or whatever, and that was kind of like it was a memorial, right? Like, both to
Hmm.
for the Muggles and for the Wizards in
Yeah.
different ways. And I thought this was really, really the same thing, where they kind of memorialized the house where the Potters died and Harry survived and Voldemort was defeated the first time. Um, and they kind of left it exactly as is to preserve the memory, but then also erected, like, this plaque, or the sign that they talk about,
Hmm.
um and that kind of tells the story, and, like, serves as a reminder for all the witches and wizards that visit, like, what was lost in order for them to live without the fear of Voldemort
Hmm.
every single day. And then also on top of that, like, we see a lot of visitors leaving supported messages for Harry on the sign, and just like the memorial took something extremely sad, which was the death of Harry's parents, and, like, turned it into something that Harry could look at and smile, which was really nice. Um,
It also turned it into something that people could build community and rally around.
yeah,
So the graffiti that they're leaving, the messages they're leaving for Harry,
exactly.
is like especially the newest ones, when the regime is very clear and out in the open, is basically like an act of resistance and rebellion.
Yeah, exactly.
So I thought that was really interesting as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think that it has a lot of political implications to memorialize something, um, and to show your support through that memorial for, like, a certain cause, which I think they definitely did. And then the other part in the chapter that kind of really struck me was basically Voldemort's complete lack of respect for the dead. Um,
Yeah.
so like you see, well, and also lack of respect for the living, if I'm being honest. But um,
He just lacks respect for anyone but himself.
yes, but specifically, I'm talking about the desecration of Bathilda Bagshot's body. Um,
Mhm.
Literally murdering this woman and then using her body as like a tool to get something else he wants without any respect for like the person that she was, and like just like honestly like the one of the worst things that you can do after murder is to completely like desecrate the body of the
Mhm.
person you murdered. Like that's
Mhm.
just unthinkable. So like obviously we have the two ends of the spectrum here. We have people, taking this death of the Potter family and like holding it in such this high regard and respecting it and building a monument out of it and using it as like a place to come together and show support. And then we have Voldemort murdering an old woman and using her body after her death for his
Yeah.
own means. Um, it's just disgusting. So
And it's quite the choice, right? Because it's not like, oh yeah, I just put an imperious curse on her, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's no, no, I murdered her, and then I stuffed my pet snake slash Horcrux inside her.
Yes, I'm assuming. I guess I'm assuming that he murdered her. I guess maybe they talk about this later in the book, and I don't remember. But it's possible maybe she was already dead, like of old age. But I kind of doubt it.
I kind of doubt it too, but just it's just quite the choice to be honest. Like
Either way,
you're
like either way, if you find someone dead, like you bury them, you have a funeral for them, you let the people who cared about them like mourn, and you don't use their body for evil means.
yeah, that's
So
just basic decency.
so even if you didn't murder her, like he murdered like 6 billion other people in this freaking chapter alone, so it's whatever. Like,
Yeah, no. You're right. It was 6 billion. That it says it very clearly in the
right,
chapter.
exactly.
It was 6 million except for that one kid, one muggle kid who was like, "Oh, it's Halloween. What are you dressed as?"
Oh, but he
Basically.
definitely thought about it.
Oh no, no, yeah, but he spared the kid. It's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
He just wanted to murder the baby. He spared the kid who was walking.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, we're gonna talk about that more later because that's my Dementor. Spoiler
Okay,
alert.
cool, cool, cool.
But we'll get into it later. So what about your politic for this chapter, AJ? What was yours?
Okay, so obviously I talked about memorializing last week, right?
Right.
Um, and I didn't want to do it again, but then that forced me to think about this chapter and what the through line of the chapter could be also aside from memorializing, because it's true, it's like memorializing is a huge part of this chapter. Um and I kept coming back to houses and like, to me, what do houses mean? But if not like a physical manifestation of homes, right? And I was like, I wonder what the politics of home means, right? So I started researching about the politics of home. And what I thought was really interesting about politics of home is that it has an implication with like the rise of nationalism that we're seeing in Europe and in the United States since the 80s and recently. And I'm going to read an excerpt here that I found online, okay?
Okay.
So it says the new millennium has also witnessed a second wave of nationalism, this time sweeping over Western Europe. Guys, I
Hmm.
wonder if we know what's going on here.
No idea.
No idea. Have we not been listening to the news, right? Um, Although less acknowledged, it is a remarkable development, even in those countries that have long seen as the most progressive, such as Denmark and the Netherlands. The most heated social and political debates all revolve around questions of national identity, national values, the national canon, citizenship exams for newcomers, etc. The framing of the nation itself as home is a notable characteristic of the debates raging in Western Europe. While this is nothing new in the history of nationalism, the longing for a homogeneous national home is a novel development in those European countries that had so assiduously distanced themselves from the traditions of Boden, soil, and Hamet in the post war years. Observers may be surprised by the timing of this surge in nationalism feelings in societies that have for decades considered themselves to be post national. Western European societies have never been so diverse in terms of ethnicity, religion, and culture as they are today. But it is precisely this increased diversity that largely explains the renewed popularity of the nation as home ideal. So, the reason why I was thinking about home and like houses and stuff, like, so Godric's Hollow is a well known, basically, like wizard community.
Mm,
Like there could be muggles around, but it's mostly you're more likely to like cross paths with wizards than muggles
yeah.
in this community. So the idea of like home as like nation is interesting to me in this context because wizarding society has like this idea of like itself as a nation and a separate entity from the muggle world, right? And there's like uh this nationalism in within the wizarding society, like the Voldemort movement, to to call it that, is really interested in ideas of purity and citizenship exams, like how did you come across these magical powers if you were from a muggle family, that kind of thing. And like what their values are, what their identities are, like so those things. So setting wise, right, like this is one of those chapters that is set on two different houses, and it revolves around like the history of the house and how like either people are resisting this like nationalism in the wizarding world, like by leaving Harry like these messages, like encouraging these messages that he really appreciates, and how like the other side has inhabited this home to weaponize it against Harry
Hmm.
because they know that he's longing to return to home or return to his like
Yeah.
roots. So that's where my thought was.
Definitely. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I mean, you didn't even touch on like the fact that, you know, not only does Harry call this place home, but so does Dumbledore. And like
Yeah,
there's like
exactly.
that shared like
Connection.
yes, and how and like like the complicated feelings that Harry has not only about sharing this like birthplace with Dumbledore,
Mhm.
but the fact that he didn't share it with him, like share the information with him. Um
And and let's be clear, another person who shares that home
mhm,
with Dumbledore and Harry
mhm,
is also Matilda Bagshot, who wrote A History of Magic, which is a seminal text in the wizarding world,
yeah. Yeah.
which, can go a million directions, but like
Yeah.
these are very important people who just so happen to have like homes in that area. But also like the idea of home in the wizarding world is a little bit more complicated than our idea of home. Or
Yeah.
is it? Because what the idea is that they are coexisting with other quote unquote cultures, right? As we are all in like multicultural societies.
Yeah. I mean,
It's like sorry, it's a lot. But
yeah,
we can.
no, I mean, yeah. Um this was a really interesting just like lens to view the chapter in. So thank you for bringing that up.
Oh, you are more than welcome. And also, I can't wait to hear your quote about memorializing.
Yeah, so I decided because as well, like I said, it was kind of there's like the two ends of the spectrum, the really great side of memorialization, and then the
Oh
really
my God, your quote and my quote is the same one. I just realized.
oh, is it okay? So how about I'll just read it, and we'll just this is the quote for both then.
Yeah, like
Okay,
we can definitely talk about like how you view it through your lens and I view it through mine.
yeah, let's do it. Yeah, because I mean, I didn't really. First of all, I mean, I had issues with how the whole Bathilda Bagshot part was written.
I really did not wanna, like, choose a quote from that. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
that was gross.
I just had a lot of issues with how it was written, and so I didn't really feel like there was yeah, so I decided to go with the better part because it's a touch warming. Heartwarming and
We
touching is what I was trying to say, and I said touch
we
warming. I
I'm sorry, touch more.
I was trying to say heartwarming and touching, and,
It's very cruel of you,
yeah,
like,
it's very cruel.
yeah,
Anyway,
it's touch
um,
warm.
so I'm gonna read this touch warming quote, if you don't
I love this so much.
mind. Okay. A sign had risen out of the ground in front of them, up through the tangles of nettles and weeds, like some bizarre, fast growing flower. And in golden letters upon the wood, it said, "On this spot, on the night of 31 October 1981, Lily and James Potter lost their lives. Their son Harry remains the only wizard to ever have survived the killing curse. This house, invisible to muggles, has been left in its ruined state as a monument to the Potters and as a reminder of the violence that tore apart their family." And all around these neatly lettered words, scribbles had been added by other witches and wizards who had come to see the place where the boy who lived had escaped. Some had merely signed their names in everlasting ink, others had carved their initials into the woods, still others had left messages. The most recent of these shining bright over 16 years of worth of magical graffiti all said similar things. "Good luck, Harry, wherever you are. If you read this, Harry, we're all behind you. Long live Harry Potter."
What
Right?
a quote.
It's just, I loved that part. Yeah, I loved it.
I
Obviously, like,
this wasn't, shown in the movie, was it?
no, this was not shown in the movie at all. I would have loved to have seen it. I don't think we ever get to see their house after. We see it in Cursed Child.
Okay, well,
um, but like, yeah, because there's part of this chapter is like Harry, as part of his connection with Voldemort, like sees the murder of his parents from
mhm.
Voldemort's perspective, and I think they actually like have that whole scene play out in First Child, so that was
Yes.
interesting.
Well, we see it in the movie too, right? Like that scene. But I don't think we have the scene of like the memorial and like the,
Yeah,
you know, long live Harry Potter.
yeah, yeah. So, obviously, in terms of my politic for memorialization, I mean, it's pretty obvious. They they call it a monument. They say that basically, it says, "The house invisible to Muggles has been left in its ruined state as a monument to the Potters and as a reminder of the violence that tore apart their family." Um,
Mhm.
so it was a beautiful way for the Wizarding community to like pay respects to the loss of the Potter family and like thank them simultaneously for the sacrifice that they made just to protect not only their child but the entire wizarding world.
I agree. For me, this was like the idea, like I've briefly mentioned it before, but um of home as like a political act, like this house was kept this way for a purpose, and it was to
Yeah.
remember and remind people that this had happened and people died because of it, and to like pave over it would have been to almost erase that history.
Yeah.
So instead they preserved it, and people are, as an act of resistance, not just towards like the nationalist movement, right, are leaving graffiti, but also like almost as an act of resistance towards like whoever was like, we're just gonna leave this pristine like representation of like death, right? Like or of sacrifice
Hmm.
for the wizarding world. They're like, yeah, but you know what? This is also like a living document, and we're going to leave these messages
Yeah.
like of support towards Harry. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, and just think about it, it could have been like so much worse if people like what if people had written like disparaging things on the sign?
Oh, I definitely thought about that. Yeah, I was like, oh my god, I would have like lost my shit.
Yeah, so, like, it they definitely it was a choice to have people writing on the sign at all, but at least, they wrote positive things.
Nice things, yeah.
Yeah. Exactly,
Again, I would have lost my shit. Like, I'd been like, "Oh, no.
right.
Why would they do that?"
So, in terms of how we see each other's politics in the series, I gotta
Mhm.
say, Adri, the politics of home, I mean, I think there's probably something to be said there with Harry, considering Hogwarts his home and,
Yeah,
and not only Hogwarts, but like the wizarding world, not the muggle world, like not feeling like he fits in the muggle world, but feeling like
correct.
he fits in the wizarding world. Um,
And the idea of, like, the burrow as, like, this house that's, like,
yeah,
keeps getting, like, additions, but not, like, they all don't quite mesh with each other, they're just, like, on top of each other, right?
right, yeah,
The idea of a home as something you can build upon as you keep going. You don't have to, like, plan it out like a Malfoy Manor type situation, and that is a much warmer home than something, like, grand and stately. Is also interesting. We've got Grimold Place as, like, an act of resistance, right? Like, and
yeah,
refuge. So, like, yeah, we've got several homes in which Harry has found refuge and has been able to resist, but he's also had homes like the Dursleys that are not welcoming spaces for Harry and his
yeah,
differences.
yeah, exactly. No, exactly. What's what I was
We
gonna say. So,
sorry. We also got Hagrid's hut as like another home there. Like example of home, and I like you mentioned like Hogwarts as home, and that's also an ever evolving and living breathing organism, which is
yeah,
interesting.
I'm not going home, not really.
I love you so much.
Such a great
But
quote.
oh, the room of requirement could also be something like it's just something that evolves and adapts as you need it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. All good examples.
Well, about your politic, I mean, we talked about this last time, but like this whole fucking like series is about like how if you don't memorialize and learn from your like from the past mistakes, like history is bound to repeat itself, right?
Right.
Perhaps the wizarding world got a little too complacent, right? With like, oh, Voldemort's gone, it's fine, and then guess what, bitches, he wasn't.
Yeah, yeah. And like when you kind of think about the different deaths that Harry experiences throughout the series, like um with Cedric's death, it was like Voldemort did his thing where he just kind of like threw him aside, like kill the spare, who cares about him? Like he was just gonna let the body just like rot forever or whatever. And Harry wanted to bring the body back to his father to like memorialize like that this like he wanted to show that this person mattered, right? And he wanted to like be he didn't want Cedric to just be like a casualty of war.
Well, and I think what's really important to add to what you had said previously in this episode and what you're pointing out too is that the difference between Harry and Voldemort here is obviously clear in the way that they treat the dead, right? Like
Mhm,
Harry has a respect and reverence for the bodies of the dead and also the memories of those who have died.
mhm.
Whereas Voldemort is just like, and I'm just going to like drop, like, they're going to drop like flies, and I'm not even going to bother moving them.
Yeah, yeah. And
And
I think
I mean, we see that in the flashback, which is also very disturbing.
yeah, and I think that part of like Harry's outlook and like the way that he approaches those situations has to do with the fact that he like dealt with loss like the earliest age that you possibly can, basically. Um, and how that like kind of shaped how he deals with death and memorialization and grieving and like respecting those that have passed. Yeah.
Well, speaking of like terrible things, right? Let's talk about the Dementors for this chapter for you, Helene. What did you hate?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it earlier, but yeah, it was Voldemort nonchalantly just considering to murder or considering just murdering an innocent child on the street just because he can. And literally only choosing not to murder this child because it just, as he says in the chapter, just it's not necessary.
Hmm.
Just the complete disregard for human life. The like, oh, this child comes up to me, I could kill this child. Like that was his first thought. A child runs up to you on the street and you're like, oh, I could kill you if I wanted to. Like, what? Like that's I mean, like we all know that Voldemort's a huge psychopath, but like that is like peak psychopathic behavior.
Like fucking deranged. Like,
Yeah. Like if you have an interaction with another human being and your first thought is I could kill you if I wanted to, like what? Like that it's just horrifying. It's horrific.
please seek mental health help, please,
Yes.
if that is the case.
Exactly. So, yeah, that was my Dementor. What about you?
Um, well, my Dementor is not as deep as yours, even because I was like, I wanted to be like, girl, same, but also like, I can't keep being like, well, you have the same things all the time, so why do we even have me anymore? Just have Helene host this thing by herself.
Why do we even have that, Adri? Do you get the reference?
No,
It's
I don't.
it's Emperor's New Groove. Why do we even have that lever?
Oh, gotcha. I just watched it the other day. How did I not get it?
I think about it because it's a inside joke I have with a group of my friends. One weekend we watched it, and I don't remember what happened, but we say why do we even have that Brittany all the time now? So that
Okay, got
so
it, got it, got it. Actually, I was actually watching it with Livy, showing her important pieces of literature.
yeah, Emperor's New Groove is a classic.
It is. It's seminal text
Yes,
in my eyes. Anyway, I'm gonna create the Adri's anthology of literature instead of the Norton anthology.
squeak squeaker squeak squeakin'.
Mm-hmm. See, I got that.
Yeah, you got that one.
Anyway, I got that one. Well, because I'm very invested in Kronk.
Kronk is the best. He is the himbo of our time.
Oh, I was just gonna say he is like the best himbo.
Yes, I loved him.
God, I love himbos. Anyway, my Dementor is just two words. That was of all the words that were used to describe things. Milky eyes, gross.
At what point?
Like
When did this
like
happen?
it's just like the Matilda's eye. Like the author's describing Matilda's eyes as like her milky eyes or whatever, like looking back at Harry, and
Uh,
I was like, gross. Like
is that supposed to be like blank?
like with like cataract, like
Oh, okay. Yeah,
glazed over,
got it.
like like just it's just a gross, like I'm
Yeah,
just like,
yeah, yeah,
oh, like that also gives you like the idea of like, oh, she's dead, you know what I mean, but
yeah, yeah,
also
yeah.
like she's very old, or she's very very old and like falling apart, but like I was just like, oh guys, come on.
No, I get it. It's imagery. That's what's the thing with this chapter, right? The imagery was just
The
ugh.
imagery, like obviously the stuff about like the riding meat and stuff really got me as well, but the I just had a really visceral reaction when
Yeah,
I read that this time, and I was like, oh,
yeah. I feel that.
gross.
I feel that.
And let me tell you, I my baby is eating solids and I'm changing diapers, so for me to get a gag and a body shudder out of me right now is hard, and that gave me that.
Well, you know what's something that's milky that's not bad, but is in fact really good?
uh, are we talking about like Cadbury egg milk chocolates?
I was just thinking about milk chocolate in general, milky chocolate.
I know, but like I needed to make it more specific.
Isn't there a
You
brand of chocolate called Milka? Isn't that a brand?
Yes, it's so good. By the way, like as an aside, I went looking, hunting for Cadbury eggs on Amazon.com.
I couldn't find any
Uh,
this season.
well, here's the deal. Like I could find a box of 30 Cadbury eggs.
For what, like $50?
No, it was like 30. It's not that bad. But I was like, oh, maybe I could like buy this and like because I'm still, as you know, have not sent you this year's birthday present. Because so now you're getting to read last year's birthday present, which I sent last year, by the way. But you know, we have a different schedule here at Archaeopolitics, especially when Adri has to do things. And I was like, maybe I could put a bunch of Cadbury eggs in Pauline's
I mean, I
birthday box. But then I read all the reviews and it was like a 50-50 split of whether or not they were fresh or not.
oh, that
And I
sucks.
was
Yeah.
like this is
Nothing
I
is worse than, like, a hard egg, like, where the cream is, like,
like
solid.
hardened. Yeah, that was the part where I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, that's probably not gonna work out. So then I went down this rabbit hole of like, does someone have a copycat recipe for the cream?
You were gonna make it? Oh my god.
Because I was like, okay, so what if I find a copycat recipe for the cream and then I just buy a bar of Cadbury milk chocolate because they sell that and we can make like
Eh,
dip
yeah.
and like dip the chocolate in the cream. But I haven't quite found one that sounds right to me because one of them had whipping cream and I guarantee you that that cream does not have whipping cream. Whipping cream is for like other things.
Like a heavy whipping cream?
Yes.
I mean, maybe for the consistency, 'cause it's
No,
thick.
it was like because someone was making a like a cookie dip for like a Cadbury inspired dip, not the
Ah,
actual center
I
like
gotcha, I
cream.
gotcha.
So I think they added the heavy whipping cream to give it that like more dippable consistency. But I'm still on the case.
I'm happy to hear it. I'm happy to hear it.
And if not, you know, there's always March 2023. I will be hoarding all the Cadbury eggs at
Yeah, I
Walgreens.
need to do that again this year, I really do.
Oh, well, but speaking of, what was your chocolate?
My chocolate was, um, just the moment of Harry seeing that sign, in front of the childhood home, reading all the supportive messages, and I kind of, like, alluded to it, but the fact that he was able to see this point of trauma that defined his entire life and is the reason that he is an orphan and has lived such like a life of just searching for family. Um, like he's at the pinnacle of like this entire moment where it happened and he's able to smile.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, just being able to find happiness and joy in it and Hermione like, being like, "Oh my god, I can't believe they wrote on the sign. That's so
I
bad."
can't,
And she was
I
like,
can't believe they deface it.
yeah, and he was like, "No, I'm glad. I really love it." And it was just a really beautiful moment. That's what I wanted.
So for me, like it was a very similar chocolate. Like it's basically that moment. But what I really resonated with me was the explanation as to why it was kept that way.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh yeah. So not only like because at first they are talking about maybe it's like there's some kind of dark magic that you can't, you know, heal or whatnot. But then, like, you know, there's an explanation as to why it was preserved the way it was. And it's like,
Yeah.
you know what? Like that's really thoughtful. And like not enjoyed it in the haha way, but in the like it touched my heart.
Yeah. Yeah. I yeah.
So speaking of things that touch all the hearts, we had a question last week for our listeners, Celine, and it was the following: if you've lost someone important to you, how did that grief affect you?
Yes. And just proving that people just didn't like our question last week. Um, we actually got a nice supply of answers this week. So thank you guys for replying and telling us your stories. I'll read through a few of them. I have a couple like short ones, and then we also received an email that I wanted to read as well.
Ooh, okay.
So um, Chaza Hutch on Instagram said, it never leaves you. Some days are normal, but then others can come over you like a tsunami wave.
Oh,
Which, I mean,
so accurate.
I thankfully have yet to lose someone like at that level where I would like constantly grieve. Um, however, I don't think it's too far away, unfortunately. So this is all of these are really kind of like preparing me for for what I'm gonna be going through when that day does come, and I just my heart breaks for
Well,
every one of you who have had to deal with that.
I mean, I know it's not the same necessarily, but sometimes losing someone can be more than just death, right? Like it can be like losing a friendship that was really important to you.
Yeah, it's
Um,
true.
and that grief, while not exactly the same as the grief that accompanies someone's passing, is still grief and is still valid. So you may have dealt with very similar grief because we've all lost friendships, we've all lost
Yeah, that's true.
futures futures that we thought we'd have. Like when you get your hopes up and you've worked really hard on something and then that
Yeah,
doesn't pan out. That is a type of also grief
yeah,
of
yeah. You're right.
ha-
Yeah,
handling that.
totally.
So I want to also validate that.
Yeah, no, I get it. No, I mean that's a valid point. Um, so tsunami waves, got it. Sounds awful, and I hope that you found ways to deal and cope with that pain. The next is Dream Quaffle on Instagram said, it helped me appreciate the family I still have,
Hmm.
which makes a lot of sense. And I feel like that is a very rational response to losing someone. Um,
Hmm.
and then Slytherin Reading Room on Instagram said, it filled me with regret of not spending more time with that person. Uh, which I mean, that's like something that I think of immediately. Like when you get the possibility or the opportunity to know that your time might be limited,
Hmm.
obviously the first thought that is probably going to run through your mind is like, I want to spend as much time with them before they're gone. But unfortunately, not everybody gets that warning. Some people are lost extremely suddenly, and I can't imagine having to cope with that regret afterwards. So, um,
Well, I mean, maybe before you read the email, I do want to share like I don't know if
yeah.
I shared it on the show. I might have. Um, One of my cousins who's like most of my cousins are like my bigger brothers and sisters because I'm the baby of the cousins, the baby girl of the cousins. My brother's the baby boy. He passed away right before I gave birth this year, a couple of weeks before. His name was Emilio, and he and I were, close. And and perhaps this is not like, and I hope this resonates with someone. Um, Grief can sometimes also come in a very surprising way, in which to me it filled me with gratitude for having had the times that we had together, and also gratitude of knowing him and having him as like my older sibling figure. And if it wasn't for him, I would have probably never become an English major. He gave me my first copy of Jane Eyre. So, like, I'm a recovering English major basically because of him. So it's one of those things where like you think about the impact that someone has had on your life and the choices you've made because of the influence you've had in your life, right? of a certain person.
Yeah.
And that's also maybe a way of thinking about legacy and grief, right? Like maybe if we also hold people dear to us, I'm not saying you don't have regrets because we all do, right? But say like, but look at the impact they made, and I hope that I can also impact other people's lives, even if I didn't know it, right? Like I'm the person I am because of him and everyone who's come into my life and
Yeah.
impacted it that way. So yeah, so
I think
grief is a
that
complicated monster.
yeah, I think that what you're describing, I feel like that's a destination for most people. Like that I feel like most people like it's a goal to get there. And I think I would say that it's probably I wouldn't be surprised if most people in time do get to that place, right? Where they end up being grateful of the time that they had with that person. I just feel like it's not where most people start out. Um
Well, I mean, I've had a head start. I'm not gonna lie. My I lost one of my like one of my grandparents died when I was 6 months old, so I never really got to know him. And apparently, that's the one that I'm most like. So, whether it's a blessing or a curse, I don't know. My grandma Amelia died when I was 7, and that was like the death that has hit me the hardest in my entire life. For obvious reasons. I was just basically like it's the first time I had to deal with loss. My aunt died of cancer when I was 12. My cousin died of an overdose when I was 12. Uh, my other aunt died of cancer when I was 15. So it was like it's a lot of loss.
yeah.
My grandmother died of suicide when I was 22, and a month later my grandfather passed away. Like it was just
Yeah.
sometimes the punches kept coming, right? So I don't know if like I sometimes I wonder, right? Like am I disassociating from my grief and like later on it's going to come and bite me, or did I just like get a
I mean,
little bit better at handling it?
I think it's normal to look at a healthy reaction to something and think like, is this actually healthy or am I being unhealthy by trying to be
Yeah.
healthy? Um, but I mean, I think there's just as good of a chance that it is a genuine healthy reaction. Especially, unfortunately, like grief is like not the thing in life that you want to have a lot of experience or like preparation for. Um,
No, I mean it's
so
not. And I feel like I tend not to leave anything unsaid to anyone because I'm very direct. So like the regret of like, oh, I didn't say this is almost never there, you know? Um,
yeah,
but what I do, and this is I'm veering off kind of the topic, like what I have grieved even stronger, I think sometimes is the loss of friendships that I thought I had. Cause like, they weren't as invested in this friendship clearly as I was. Or like
yeah,
I've tried to reach out and they haven't said anything to me. I try to, like they're ghosting me. Oh, I just okay, well, I guess I misunderstood that, or did I do anything wrong? Like that
yeah,
sometimes eats me up more than uh death in a way. I don't know how to explain it. It's mostly because I just don't leave anything unsaid to my loved ones, right? So if they pass, at least usually I won't have like probably. I tell everyone I love them all the time, so it's I'm a little bit of a softie that way when people get to know me. Just not when they first meet me.
yeah. I mean, I don't. For me, I don't think it's gonna be. I don't think it's a matter of whether or not the person I lost knew that I love them. It's more like whether or not the person I lose knew exactly how much they meant to me. And like I'm gonna like probably want think about all the questions I didn't ask them or all the
Oh,
advice I
that's a
didn't
real
get
thing.
from
Yeah,
them and stuff
that's a
like
real
that.
thing. Yeah.
So,
Sometimes
um,
it hits me with my grandma. I'm like, oh, I should have asked her what it was like to grow up like this. Or sometimes I'll learn something from my parents about my grandparents, like, oh, you didn't know that she grew up an orphan or something. And I was like, what the fuck? You didn't tell me?
Yeah, yeah,
Like I wish I would have known these things, but like sometimes as a child, that's not something you're privy to.
yeah. Well,
So it's time for the email.
I'm gonna read the email that we got from listener Christina. She wrote in on our contact page on our website, which I feel like people forget to do. So thank you so much for even doing that, Christina. It's always a pleasure
There's
to,
so many ways to get at us, guys.
yeah,
Like you can do the website, you can do the email, you can do
yeah.
like Instagram, Twitter.
You should have heard the squeal I had when I got a notification on my phone and I saw it was like an email, like an actual email with like an actual response to our question. Um, so I'm going to read it from Christina. She goes, "Hey, Adrian Helene, what a tough question. In the 3 years since my dad passed away, I learned that grief can and will sneak up on you and will hit you right in the face when you least expect it. This can be something random happening that I know he would have found funny, and then me realizing he's not around anymore for me to tell him. Or my 6-year-old kid sharing a memory about his grandpa out of the blue. Or me borrowing my dad's old Kindle only to see where and when he set the last bookmark and sobbing for a half an hour because I realized he never finished that book. As sad as these moments feel, they also show that he is still a part of our lives, and that to me is a very comforting thought. Lots of love, Christina."
Christina, you made me cry. Like this is me being like a softie again.
Yeah,
But only podcast listeners know, guys. If you see me in the wild, I am tough as nails. Please.
yeah, no, obviously, it hits me in a very special way because what everything that you said, because I've mentioned it, but my dad is going through some scary health issues right now. And like obviously, I mean not obviously, but I mean I intellectually know that like what he's dealing with right now is not necessarily a death sentence. Um, but it feels like it. And so
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
so just, reading about the loss of your dad and how that has affected you and your children, and just, I see exactly the ways that it affects you, being how it'll most likely affect me when that eventually happens. So I'm so sorry that you had to go through that, Christina, and our hearts are with you.
Yeah. I mean, God, what a punch to the gut. The like realization that someone never finished reading a book they were, in the middle of,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that is just such a real reminder of like
How short life
you're
is.
how yeah, you're here and then you're not, right?
Yeah.
And I remember very clearly the moment. I mean, we all know we're mortal, like for a long time in our lives, right? But like the moment where I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna die someday," for real, like it really hit me,
Yeah.
was when actually, I think it was like maybe the second night after our wedding, where I was like laying down next to Seth, and he was snoring, and I was like, "Oh man, I'm like, I've made a lifelong commitment to this person and I'm going to die someday." And like my mortality just like really like
Wow.
collapsed on me like that on that moment. And I was like, oh my God. Like it's like intellectually I knew, right? But like
Yeah.
emotionally it was like a separate thing. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
um so that's on that side of the coin. And then I mean, growing up like I did with loss and whatnot. Thankfully, I still have both my parents, and still a ton of aunts and uncles. But the ones that I did lose were the closest to me. It's going to happen, but nothing really prepares you for it. Um,
Yeah, and like I think about how people always say all the time, like don't don't let things go unsaid. Like I there are things where I'll literally just be sitting and be like, oh man, I really want to ask my father about this, like before he's not with me anymore. But it's things like things that it would be like, it wouldn't make any sense to literally just call him up and be like, "Hey, so, like, how did the loss of your parents affect you?" Like,
Yeah.
because my dad lost both of his parents before I was born. So, like, and he's someone that, and he lost his only sister, his only sibling, when I was very young as well. So, like, and as a rabbi, he's had to both counsel grieving families and officiate funerals his entire life. So he has like a very unique way of like dealing with loss, because he's just basically been forced to deal with it many, many times in his life. And so obviously that's a conversation I want to have with him at some point, because maybe it'll also give me some, insight into how I can move on when he's no longer with me. But it's like that's like not a conversation that I can just like call him up and talk to him about, right? Like it's not something that you would just bring up out of the blue. Like if you're sitting in a room watching a TV show and you just pause it and you're like, "Hey, by the way, so like I wanted to ask you." Like so
There's no organic way of saying
yeah.
like,
So like it's stuff like that where I think all the time about like, oh, people talk about how you should, like, you don't want to let things go unsaid. There are things that you want to talk about with this person and find out and learn from this person before they're gone. B- But then you're just like, how the fuck am I supposed to bring this up without one being extremely morbid, and two, like, fitting it into a normal conversation.
oh yeah, I don't do that. I just ask. Last time my mom was here, I was like, I kept just asking. Like we were just, I was driving her around to the mall or whatever, and it's like, so what was it like when this? Tell me more about this. Tell me more about this. And
Yeah.
she like at first she was like, the fuck, and then I was like, I just want to know. I just don't want to. Um, I need to
Yeah.
know. And she's like, okay, cool. So we had really interesting conversations about like how it was for her to grow up with like a sergeant major for a father,
Yeah.
um, who was very strict and but was also like a genius at like marketing and like what before that was like a real thing, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like he wasn't Don Draper or whatever, but like he had his own businesses and he did everything for them, like the marketing, the publicity, like all of that. And he had like a real, like he would have, you know what, he would have been great at social media. Like he would have been really good at social media. I am not, but he really would have been. Like he understood what people needed and uh, and how to communicate that to people and how to get people interested in what he was doing. And we talked about like the guy that she was with before she met my dad and like what that relationship was like and just things that she never really had opened up to me about. um but I also feel like not everyone is in a stage with the relationships with their parents or where their parents see them as having enough things go like in their lives to answer those questions either. Like my mom would never, like I've always had these questions clean, but this is the first time she's actually answered them.
Wow.
So like this is not me the first time, like I'm not getting an answer the first time around, you know?
Yeah.
So I mean you can't control people, right? But like you can, I feel like that would be an excellent podcast project idea is to like ask your dad like these questions and have him send you voice memos and you can compile that later
Yeah,
or have
definitely.
or over Thanksgiving sit down with him and a phone and a microphone and your laptop and record conversations and be like, this is a little awkward, but I really want to do this. I'm not sure what I want to do with this afterwards, but I just want to do it and see what happens.
Yeah. No, it's definitely something that I'll have to think about, because I like the idea of being able to go back and listen to the conversations after he's gone. So,
Yeah, and that may not happen for the next like hopefully like 35 years, but
he would be over 100 if it were 35 years, but sure.
modern medicine is a wonder, okay?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Anyway, thank you guys so much for answering the question. Obviously, it was kind of a sadder question, but it was so it touched me to be that you guys like felt comfortable sharing your experiences with grief with us.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for doing that.
And you if honestly, if you have any more, feel free to send them to us because I feel like that is something that we should talk about more, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
All right. So this time around for this episode, we thought this question would be something also that you guys could, share with us because I think that we want to know more about you guys and what you like, what makes you tick, all of that. So, without preamble, who, what, or where is your idea of home and why? I mean, it could be three different answers, right? Like, it could be a person, it could be a place, and it could be like an idea, right? Like,
It could be a thing.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to hear what other people have to say about that. I mean,
I'm a- I'm excited about to hear also from you, Helene, what that would be for you.
okay. Do you want to give our answers next week when we read everybody else's?
Yes,
Okay. I will
yes.
take a think on it.
I might have like 20,000 answers because I'd be like, well, it depends on like my mood, but
Yeah. I mean, off the top of my head, I'd probably have to say my cats. I don't know if that would change by next week. We'll see.
uh, sometimes it's just also like a cozy feeling, right? Like, what gives you that cozy feeling of belonging?
Yeah. Yeah, like, I just know that no matter where I am, I feel like I'm missing something if my cats aren't there, and
Yeah.
I can't imagine, like, my home feeling like a home without them there, so, uh, that
Okay.
would probably be my answer, but I'll think about it, and if I have any changes, I will let you know next week.
Any addendums, any
Yes.
additions?
Yes.
I think home can be a thousand things.
Yeah.
So that's
Exactly.
exciting for me. Even like something as simple as the smell of Puerto Rican coffee. You know what I mean? That to me is also
Yeah.
home.
Yeah, totally, I could see that.
Food. Yes. Think speaking of yummy, yummy things, let's talk about the media we've been consuming with our brain mouths.
Our brain mouth. I was like, "Yummy." I don't know if I would eat any of these things, but sure. Uh
Your brain is eating them.
Yes, my brain is consuming them, that is true. Um, I binge watched the entire season of The Mole on Netflix this weekend, which apparently is like it used to be an old show that they brought back, um,
Mm-hmm.
and let me see if I can explain it correctly. So basically, there are a bunch of people who want to win this prize pot of money, and
Okay.
each episode they have to do different missions that can either add money to their pot, or if they fail or have to like get help or whatever, can remove money from their pot. And they're all competing. Each week a person gets sent home so that like by the end of the game, one person wins the prize money. But in this
Mm.
group of people, there is one person that like the producers of the show have planted as the mole, who is there specifically to try and sabotage missions and make the group lose as much money as possible so that the prize pot is lower at the end. Um,
Okay.
I don't think they actually I never watched the old show, so, I don't know if this is, like, a known thing, but and I don't think they said this in the new season that is now on Netflix. I don't know what the mole gets out of it other than, like, getting to be
The mole?
devious. Yeah, devious and, like, lie. Like, I don't know if I don't think they win money, so I don't understand exactly why the mole does this other than, like, it's the point of the show. Um
Okay.
But, so each week it's like trying to figure out like when someone fucks up in a mission, like is that person like was it a genuine mistake? Or are they using strategy to get people to make them think they're the mole? Or are they actually the mole? Because if you can if you're not the mole and you can get people to think you're the mole, then like people get sent home by making wrong assumptions on who the mole is.
Oh,
So
okay.
like
Gotcha.
so
Gotcha.
like if you um are on the right track for the mole the entire time, like, you will probably stay longer. Um, and if you, because like the elimination is like every week they take like a 20-question quiz about who the mole is with like very specific questions. And the person who gets the most wrong answers is the one that gets sent home. So,
Okay.
um, and so, like, if you can get people to think that you're the mole when you're not, then like people will put answers on the quiz that reflect you being the mole, and then they'll get sent home, but you won't, kind of thing. So, like, there's a
That
lot of strategy. What were you gonna?
okay. That reminds me of the show with the Jonas Brothers that you
Claim
liked?
claim to fame?
Claim to Fame? Yeah. Kind of like there's like a lot of
Yeah,
strategy of like
it's
figuring out who everyone is.
it's kinda like that, a little bit, yeah, a little bit, yeah. It was, like, honestly unlike anything I'd ever seen before. It was so intriguing. I was just, like, so into it from the very first episode, and if the missions, like, it's kind like, some of the missions were extremely physically demanding. And
Okay.
if that weren't the case, I would 100% go on this show. Cause like, I mean, one of the missions was they literally had to hike up like a snowy mountain carrying like hundreds of pounds worth of like ice, which like fuck that. I would never do that in a million years. Um, but
Yeah, like surprising no one.
yeah,
Neither would I.
yeah, but like other missions that they had were like honestly like reminded me of escape rooms and stuff. I was like, I would fucking do this. That sounds great. So
You know, okay, this might shock you. Maybe it won't. I've never done an escape room, but I want
oh
to.
my god, they're my favorite. I've gone to, like, every single one in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area, and, like, it's something that I, like, get my friends to do with me for my birthday and stuff, like, it's one of my favorite things. I love escape
Okay,
rooms.
so what I'm hearing is that you're gonna come to San Antonio and do all the escape rooms here with me
I mean, sure.
because you've already done the ones in your
Well,
area.
each escape room company has, like, 4 or 5, like, actual experiences that they rotate out, so, like,
Okay.
they are always new escape rooms that I have not yet tried in my area, but
Okay. Well, we could also just do like a podcast co-host trip
yeah,
somewhere
yes, of
to
course.
a neutral location.
Yes. So, I thoroughly enjoyed the mole. If that sounds interesting to you, I highly suggest it. It was very fun watch. Finished it in 2 days. Um, so yeah, and I had a very like from the very first episode, I was convinced I knew who the mole was. And
Were you right?
I'm not gonna say who I thought it was, but they did make it to the finals, and they were not the mole. So
Tricky editors.
yeah, I was so convinced that this person was the mole the entire time, and I was like every single time they made it through the elimination. Because another thing is like the mole cannot get eliminated, obviously. Like they're supposed to look like a normal player because no like so like they do all of the like confessional booth like interview things and like talk as if they are a player and not the mole. So like the viewer themselves doesn't know who the mole is. And it they make it look like this person takes the quiz every week and doesn't know who the mole is or like has hunches of who the mole is when in reality they're taking the quiz every week and answering every single question correctly because it's about them and they that way they can literally never get eliminated so that they like guaranteed to make it to the end. And so every single week, this person was like passing and moving on. And I was like, okay, like this person has to be the mole. Like plus 8 million other things where I was like, I'm convinced there's no way that this person is not the mole because of A, B, C, and D. Like I had so much evidence. And then they get to the final. And um well, it's okay. There are two women in the final and one man. So um it still doesn't ruin anything. They get to the final and uh, they are not, and I was just shocked. So just just watch it.
You know what would be great? A twist on that where it's called the mole, and there everyone's always like paranoid, and it turns out no one is the mole.
That would be hilarious. I would watch that. That'd be funny.
Yeah. It's like, or, wasn't there one where where like dating shows where it's like they've come up with like a thousand concepts. So in the early 2000s, there was like a dating show that didn't make it long, thank God, in the reality TV space. But it was like one of the guys was gay and one of the guys was straight, and they would pair them with like straight girls or whatever. And like the gay guy had to convince the straight girl that he was straight.
I mean,
And it
this
was like
is
a, yeah,
kind of giving me like fuckboy island vibes, right? Because the guys
yeah.
have to convince the girls that they're not fuckboys, and the girls have to like figure out whether or not the guy is a fuckboy, but and like if they want
Yeah, but
to.
like far more problematic because it's
Yeah,
like
but the gay versus
putting
yeah,
someone in a closet. Yeah,
yeah,
again.
totally, totally.
Uh but just kind of like what if the concept was that but like that was the concept but
All the
it was
guys were
not
straight.
true.
All the guys were straight.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Just or the other way. Whatever.
yeah,
Just mess with people, I guess. But
yeah. But I would totally watch that. So yeah, go watch them all. The other one I have on here is Enola Holmes 2, which is a surprise to no one because Enola Holmes, the first one, was like one of my favorite movies when it came out on Netflix.
it
So,
was good.
yeah, so I've
I
been
haven't watched it yet, but it's on my list.
yeah, I watched it this weekend. I've been impatiently waiting for the sequel for a while. I mean, how can you go wrong? Millie Bobby Brown, Henry Cavill, Helena Bonham Carter. It's It's amazing. It's fourth wall breaking. It's mystery. It's hilarious. So yeah, obviously go watch that.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of Henry Cavill and Netflix, very sad that
The
he's going to be
Witcher.
recast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Liam Hemsworth now. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I've already talked myself into being okay with it, but.
My sister is like distraught.
I mean, I'm with her in spirit also, but I said, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to have to be okay with it because I'm not going to stop watching The Witcher.
I mean, that's there you go. That's what you've decided. There we go.
Like spiritually, I'm there with her, but like practically, I have already decided. Unless they really fuck it up, in which case I'm like, you're dead to me, Netflix.
Yeah, that's fair. It's a good reaction to have, I think.
Like Liam Hemsworth better just grunt just like Henry Cavill and be very nonverbal.
We'll see. I guess we shall see.
I mean, it's no secret to anyone who listens to the podcast that my entire love for like Henry Cavill in The Witcher is because he just grunts a lot and doesn't speak a lot. I just love a very nonverbal man.
Yeah. I know that about you. I know that for a fact.
He's a little bit of a himbo too, but like capable, just, just vibes.
Totally.
Just vibes.
So
Speaking of vibes, I have been comfort watching Castle season 8.
wait, did you start in season 8?
No. Just like I've watched the entire Castle,
No, I know
like
we've talked about this
series.
before because I watched
Yeah,
Castle for the first time earlier this
yeah. I
year.
started. I started season 8 just as
Okay.
a comfort
That's
watch.
okay, that's
Yeah.
what I meant. I was like, did you just skip seasons 1 through 7? Like
Oh no, I thought you meant like, did you just start watching it for the first time
no.
on season 8?
No, I knew that you had seen the whole thing because we talked about it. So yeah, that's what I was wondering. Uh,
Yeah, no.
why? Why did you start in season 8?
I just did. I just was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go
Okay, I guess
season 8.
I can't judge you because I decided recently to rewatch Gilmore Girls starting in season 5. So I feel you. I just didn't
Yeah,
want to
sometimes you
deal with the Jess
with
and
the
Dean
bullshit.
yeah, with the Jess and Dean of
Yeah.
it all. I just wanted to skip to Logan, who is my favorite. I, I don't care. I was like, you know what? I just want to see Logan and Rory, and that's it. And Luke and Lorelai finally get together in season 5 too. So it's like we're skipping all the bullshit of like the will they won't they and like the Max Medina and all that shit. No, I just give me Luke and Lorelai, Logan and Rory, season 5 and on. Perfect.
Okay, so I mean, this will also not surprise anyone, but Jess is my favorite. I know that yours slogan is fine. We don't have to like fight over them,
Girl, you're just
but
wrong.
I just love a broody like man with
He
of
treats
very
her
little
like shit.
words.
He
I know.
treats her like shit.
So, Helene, this is a conversation I have with my Oreos every night. Just because they're bad for me doesn't mean that that I'm not going to eat an entire sleeve.
See, I think that with I think with Logan they actually did the reformed bad boy storyline better than they tried to do it with Jess.
And then we got that bullshit on seasons that I'm not over, but whatever.
Oh, the revival? Yeah, the
Yeah.
revival in my mind just doesn't exist. I
Oh, that's what I was wondering
Yeah.
if like that just didn't exist for you.
Because if they hadn't disparaged Logan on top of Rory, because like disparaging and like completely undermining all of Rory's character development and like everything that she had. I mean, she was kind of a shitty character throughout most of
Oh, yeah,
seven
like
seasons,
not
but
a likable character, of
yeah,
course.
but like they like went straight for like the throat. They were like, by the way, Rory is a piece of shit in case you didn't already know. And they like solidified it in in the revival. I could have lived with that. But then to disparage Logan on top of all of that, Logan would not fucking do the shit that he did in the revival. That's just it's not realistic. Not.
Well, they really just did character
Mhm,
assassination
mhm.
of those. Um which sometimes I feel like I was so excited for the revival. I was really here for it, and then it happened and I was like, this is it.
Yeah, I was not
Amy
happy.
Sherman Palladino and company. This
Yeah,
is
I
it.
mean, like, what? You don't get the chance to write season 7, which is arguably probably one of the worst seasons of Gilmore Girls. Um, and so you come back, and your comeback is that? Like, you're like, oh, I'm
Exactly.
gonna write and direct the
They gave
revival, and they,
Netflix Netflix gave you more money than God, and this is what you came up with?
yeah. I mean, come on. Revivals are meant to capture the original essence and spark of the show, and like remind people why they loved it in the first place. And the
Yeah.
only part of the revival that did that for me was the Luke and Lorelai wedding.
Oh, I was gonna say same. That exact same moment.
Yeah.
Like that was it. I was like, okay, this did something for me at least, I guess. But
Literally the only
everything else.
redeemable part of the entire revival. So,
uh
I
yeah.
have strong
Um
Gilmore Girl opinions.
oh yeah, no. As do I. As do I. She loves hats way too much. Amy Sherman Palladino.
She does. She does.
The other thing that I didn't put on the doc, but I did listen to when it came out yesterday, in between like, bursts of things that I was doing, was the novel Anon Please by Dumois. Are you are you familiar with the account Dumois on Instagram?
No, I'm not.
Okay, great. So a primer for Helene and everyone else who doesn't know because they might have been living under a rock or making kissing faces at their cats like Helene is right now.
She's just sitting like right next to me and staring at me. Mommy, when are you gonna feed me? She's literally just staring at me. Sorry. Go on.
Okay.
Tell me about this Instagram account.
Okay, Dumois is an anonymous Instagram account that is a purveyor of celebrity gossip
Okay.
and blind items and sightings and all that jazz. So Dumois also has a podcast. So in a way, we are peers in the industry
Oh,
with Dumois.
definitely. That's yes. Me and every podcaster ever.
Of course, like we're on the same level. What are you talking about?
Right.
So Dumois has 1.6 million followers on Instagram.
Oh,
Like,
I mean, like we're almost there.
yeah, like again, titans of industry together, right?
Right.
Uh, she wrote a novel with the aid of a writer, and it's called Anon Please, which is like the whole like deal of like everyone's like, hey, I'm gonna send you this tip, but keep my name out of it, like so
Got
everyone's
it.
like Anon Please, please. And it's like very loosely based, or so she says, loosely based on her experience of running the account, and it's like a romance slash chick lit slash like fun novel that like had really great moments and had me at the edge of my seat the entire time, and then I was like trying to figure out, I was like, can I tell which facts are true in this, and can we figure out who Dumois is? And really, do I want to? Not really. It's fun that she's anonymous, but also like I hope she's making tons of money. And also, it's this very salacious gossip.
I'm so glad that you found this that gave you joy.
I'm sure that you're just like, I hate celebrity gossip, whatever.
I
AJ.
mean, I don't
But
hate it. I just don't. I don't know. It some of it interests me.
some of it.
Yeah, some of it. I mean, Aaron Carter died. Did you hear that? That was.
Yes. So do you remember like the Army Hammer scandal?
I do remember the Army Hammer scandal.
So that scandal was in large part boosted to social consciousness because of Dumois.
Wow.
So like
Okay.
there's a plot line in the novel where it's like a similar situation to that, but it's not like cannibal vibes, you know? That happens in the novel, and I was like, oh, this is definitely in reference to Army Hammer. So like there's like things like Easter eggs to where it's almost like listening to a Taylor Swift song. Do you know what I mean? Like you're like, oh, I remember that.
I getcha.
So that brought me joy in a very anxiety ridden election Tuesday.
I feel you. Yes. Anything that can bring us joy in this time is
in these dark times.
Yeah.
Hopefully things start looking up and we can get more progressive people elected to Congress and you know, all of it. But we'll see. Until then, we'll keep the good fight, I guess. And by good fight, I mean making podcasts, I guess, and spreading positivity and joy
as much as we can.
She says deadpan. She says deadpan. Well, that's it for today's episode. Join us next time to talk about Chapter 18 of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. And finally, we've gotten to this chapter title, The Life and Lies of Albus Dumbledore.
Yeah, I mean, we've already talked about the book many times already in the book. So I guess it's about time.
Yes.
If you've enjoyed this conversation, however, we would love if you could take a second to give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you happen to be listening at this very, very moment, because it helps us get new listeners, because people discover our podcast and it boosts the algorithm. And, you know, we all love a boosted algorithm.
It does the beep, boop, beep to the algorithm.
Exactly.
And the squeaky to squeak to the algorithm.
Squeak, squeaker, squeak, squeakin'. Squeak, squeaker. Why do we even have that algorithm?
Well, until then, politics managed. Support this show by going to patreon.com/Occhiopolitics. Our patrons keep this show going. You can find us online at Occhiopolitics.com, and we are at Occhiopolitics on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can email us your thoughts at info@Occhiopolitics.com. Leave us a voicemail at 915-996-1699, and you might just hear yourself on the podcast. Adriana Wilson is the founder and creative director of the podcast. Helene Karp is the producer and social media manager. Allison Pullman is the audio wizard and editor who makes us sound so good. Cover art and physical rewards are designed by Adriana Wilson. The views expressed by the hosts and guests are expressly their own and not representative of their employers or associates. Occhiopolitics is part of the MuggleNet family of podcasts.